Hello, I'm Nater Youngchild, here from a company called Hits Cannabis.
And where does your story begin?
Let's see. My story begins with an experience that occurred. You'd asked me to reflect on mystical or magical or spiritual experience. And for me, one very clearly comes to mind. January 29th of 2016, I broke 5 vertebrae in my spine. I broke my back while snowboarding, just kind of north of Mount Rainier, a ski resort called Crystal Mountain. And after that very traumatic experience and experience, and in that I still walk around and today, and very lucky to not be paralyzed. After a couple months of recovering and recuperating at my parents' place, my parents took me home to my home, which is in Baker, kind of just up north in Washington State by the border. And the first night they left me alone, I was sleeping in my bed with my cat, Jerry, kind of having, as you might imagine, like already lots of thoughts going through my head about, how did I end up here? What am I going to do with my life? Will I ever be able to walk the way I used to walk? Will I be able to do all the adventures and sports that I used to be able to do? And also on pretty heavy pain meds, still with a back. So very unique to be dropped off by my parents and my own devices, left to my own devices, which is not very effective in terms of I can barely walk around. I could barely get to the bathroom. Again, all relevant for what I'm about to tell you. So what happened was I fall asleep and I wake up to the loudest noise I've ever heard in my entire life. It jolted me up so much, as slow as a guy with a broken back can get up, that I had to pause and think to myself, what could have possibly made this noise? I'm at the top of a mountain in the middle of the woods, very peaceful place with not much noise other than snow falling. And it sounded though maybe like a semi truck had driven through my sliding glass doors, maybe. And what went through my head, I was like, maybe someone just drove a truck through the sliding glass doors to kind of break everything down. And me was the only thing I could possibly think of as I'm upstairs heard this noise. I'm like, that's the only thing that could possibly have made that much noise. So I'm thinking to myself, well, this is about to be either the worst fight in the history of the world, a guy with a broken back and a cat against people robbing him on top of a mountain, or maybe I can hobble down with my cane and try and talk some sense into these people and then just say, please don't hurt me, take whatever you're going to take, and try and just leave a bad situation. And so I'm making my way. It took me about 10 minutes to get down the stairs, and I'm right about to come around the corner. Not really sure what to truly think. But I was like, okay, I'm just gonna try and de-escalate the situation. Come around the corner, there is glass everywhere. Enough glass for, it has to be a 10-foot window is shattered. And it's all over the house, all over the couch, all over the living room, the fireplace, the kitchen, the island countertop. And I'm getting closer to it, and I'm like, oh, okay, I should put some shoes on. But I slide some shoes on so that I don't get cut. I'm holding my cat, holding Jerry, just trying to take it in, and I'm looking for where this bad thing is, and no windows are broken. Not a single window is broken. Everywhere I can see, first floor, second floor, I'm looking up at the landing, kind of a loft above the living room. There's glass everywhere, all over the place. None of the windows are broken. And I was first shooken up of am I going to encounter a really bad situation? Now I literally can't explain what's physically happening. I'm on pain meds for a broken back. And so I'm also questioning, is something not happening that I think is happening? Is this a dream? Very weird experience. And I'm I'm here. I know I'm here. I know that I'm physically in this experience. I know there's glass. I can see it everywhere. It's not in my head. It's not a figment of my. So I'm just calm yourself down. Just trying to look everywhere. I looked at all the windows, but now I'm okay, now I got to look everywhere in the house. So what I forgot that I had was, it was a house that has a roof like this and a roof like this with a bunch of windows like this to let daylight in. And I didn't think of those windows. And so I make my way up. There's another set of stairs kind of in the living room that goes up to the loft. And so I make my way, stepping on all this glass, the most glass I've ever seen ever. And I go and I see, turns out I can, there's little bits of white coming in. And so there's a little bit of snow kind of being drifted in. And so I see that whole, and they're very, very large, probably 8 or 10 feet by 8 or 10 feet. And one of them, the whole thing is missing. Top of a mountain in the middle of winter, where the guy with a broken back carrying a cat around. And I make my way up, and on the loft, that was where my office used to be. And on the loft, I had my desk, and in the middle of my desk was a hawk, dead, with its wings spread out right in the center of my office desk. And I, at least for a moment, was able to like intellectually be like, okay, at least I'm here, not some metaphysical space that I can't. I'm here. There's an explanation for what's going on. Now I have a hole in my roof in the middle of winter on the top of a mountain. I'm a little bit nervous about what to happen. Now my cat's freaking out, trying to go attack a dead hawk. He's stepping on glass. Now I'm like, okay, now I need to like just get into kind of just problem solving mode. So I was like, okay, this is too much for me to deal with right now. I need to get my cat, put him in a kennel, go to a coffee shop, and just step away from this for a moment and just try and take it in. So I did that. I went down the way to the little mountain village called in Glacier, Washington. There's a little coffee shop there called Wake and Bake. So I go in there, I grab a coffee, and I grabbed a journal on my way out. Not really with much intention, just grabbed it kind of passively. I journal a lot. And so not totally out of the norm for me to grab my journal when I go to a coffee shop. That's typically where I things. But I grabbed it, and I'm now in the coffee shop, cat's in the car. I have the journal, I have a cup of coffee. I'm in like the upper loft, which was also like a bit surreal to be in like a loft in their coffee shop, coming from the loft I just came out of. And I start just writing with no intention in mind. I just start writing. It honestly felt like someone was writing through me. And I ended up starting to reflect on where I was in life, what I was doing with my businesses and my investments as an entrepreneur, in alignment with some of my passions in life and totally out of alignment with some of my passions in life, where I was at in a relationship that I was in at the time, and just started pouring all of the thoughts that kind of are in our heads when we're maybe taking a long shower or going on a long walk. It all just like was crystal clear, and it all was just pouring out of me onto the page. And it was a very cathartic experience to kind of lay it all out and have that to kind of, okay, these are all my thoughts, but I had the opportunity to like separate myself from them. Now they're a thought that's on a page, and I have the opportunity to interact with them, and see, which of them are right for me, wrong, and opportunity to kind of maybe proactively look at my life rather than just have it all live within me and react. And that was like 3 hours into my coffee shop. And then for probably 2 more hours, I don't remember if right in the middle I started Googling things about coming to you in life. Right around that, after just dumping all my thoughts that were in my head onto the page, found my way into the Google rabbit holes that one does. And there's all kinds of stuff on hawks that come to you in life, with all kinds of different cultures in different countries that speak different languages. And there's like a fairly common thing for multiple cultures to have a perspective on what it means for a hawk to come to you in life. And basically all of them somewhat say the same things, at least in the Googling I was doing. And they all basically are like, if a hawk comes to you in life, it means that there's some divine intervention that's trying to call to you that you need to take flight and kind of look at the path from a different vantage point and see where you've been and see where you're going, and maybe take stock of that path and potentially, and in my case, it was really okay, I've been here. I see myself in all these directions. I see the life that I want, and I see myself going here and here and here in ways, and maybe they get to the life that I want. But also they're definitely not. So then I spent a couple hours just reflecting on how, maybe this is an opportunity for me to not chase every dollar. Maybe this is an opportunity for me to not let my ego drive my decisions, not let fame or all these that weren't the life that I wanted, that were influencing decisions I was making as an entrepreneur and investor, and maybe this is my opportunity or my calling from something above. Help me recognize that I still can have the life that I want. And it's going to require me to make sacrifices. It's going to me to make the ultimate sacrifice of, you're not gonna be able to walk for a while. and you're going to sit in this pain. But on the other side of it, you're going to have a clear path and a clear line to go after the life that you want, and stop being distracted by all these other things that at the time I had be distracted by quite a bit. So that's the experience. When you ask me the question, that's one doesn't go through something like that and it not stick pretty heavy in the heart. So yeah, that's the one that comes to mind. It had a profound impact on my journey and eventual journey to becoming a husband and a father, and my aunts were vastly impacted by that moment, and that intervention from above, from below, from around us, from whoever decided or however it got to me in a profound way. And that hawk was laying there in the center of my office desk.
The first question that comes to me is, you've had some now to reflect on, above or beyond or below or around. Do you have any sense? Have you been able to put a finger on what that entity is that sent that to you?
I had the definitive answer to you is no. No, I have not been able to put my finger on what that entity or who that entity is. I've had a peculiar path in exploring it. The start of that journey was Google, as I described to you, and saw I could go all kinds of different ways. After that, at the time, it was really hard to get a contractor to come work on a roof in the middle of winter on top of a mountain. And so I had to call around forever. Finally found someone, kind of a young guy, was just really starting out. Probably why he was willing to take this kind of ridiculous job. Anyways, he comes out to my place and he brought his girlfriend. His girlfriend was from Mexico. And she was just kind of helping him. He was getting the ladders out and kind of evaluating the whole situation and getting his harness ready. And his girlfriend was saying stuff to him. I didn't know what she was saying. I wasn't kind of eavesdropping, but I knew she was having somewhat of a heavy conversation with him while he was kind of trying to get to work. And by the time he gets most stuff set up, he then starts unsetting stuff up. So I go and have a with him. I don't remember how we initiated it. Asked if he needed any help or if he had any questions. And he said he's really, really sorry that he has to do this, but his girlfriend says that there's really bad energy around this hole in your roof and that they shouldn't be there. And that was my initial response, was just the problem solving of like, what the fuck are you talking about? I have a hole in my roof and you're the only guy that was going to be able to help me. And now you just set up and you're not going to help me. So they hole still in my roof. Luckily, my dad eventually, a couple days later, came up and he was able to kind of tarp it off so that we could at least just make do till spring to deal with it. But then that kind of pushed me down a rabbit hole of being like, what does that mean? I know I had quite a spiritual experience from this. And now someone who doesn't even know, but she has no idea about my spiritual experience. We didn't even speak a word to each other. She was speaking Spanish the whole time. I was speaking with him in English. And for her to have such a profound kind of like calling from an energy or an aura around a space that had such an impact on me confused me for a while. And I was really, I was unsure and sad because I came out of it with such a profound positive experience, and to then get hit with this something negative. So then I did lots of research specifically around different cultures in Mexico around energy and bad energy. And the more that I was reading and trying to research, the more I found that there's a chance that it was just a heavy energy environment, and that she just interpreted that as negative for herself. But I was able to eventually get to a calm state around that. It was just it was a heavy state environment because it was so heavy for me. And so I was able to kind of let that not put as much stock into her kind of calling it out, to at least to her boyfriend, to then to me as negative. But so I kind of stumbled my way. And eventually I landed. This was proof to me in my personal experience that there's more at play in our lives than just, a bunch of atoms clashing into each other and merging together and interacting with all the made up things we as humans make up and do. For instance, that there's something more. I haven't been able to personally put my finger on who that is or what that's. But since that moment forward, I'm a that there's more than just myself, my ideas, and the people I interact with. And I'm very grateful to have that door opened.
Yeah, I love that. Have you ever been able to use that sensitivity to energy that you became exposed to at that moment to guide any of the decisions that you've made moving forward? Have you been able to access that energy and commune with it or pray, right, to find answers? Have you ever been able to use that functional way in your
Yeah. I would actually venture to say it's almost become comfortable for me to not hear that muse or to not feel that energy or to not see those energy waves around people, around decisions, around opportunities ever since then. I almost can't turn it off since that moment. Not do I see it, not has it shown up, and is there an example in which I can give you of the one time it's shown up since then or the two times? No, every single time. It became very clear to me that the woman I was with was not the woman that I was going to spend the rest of my life with. We broke up. It became very clear to me that my path in life was very important to me to become a father. And it totally changed the lens in which I started to evaluate, other women to become my partner in life. It totally changed. I was 5 or 6 different businesses at the time, and I had in bits of money, my money, in things, trying this kind of shotgun approach of like, if I try and have as many irons in the fire as possible, one of them will work, and that it's worked. In that some of them bombed, some of them did okay, one actually did pretty well. But it also became clear to me that that wasn't in alignment with my unique ability. My unique ability is to inspire confidence in others. And I found myself dabbling with that and playing with that in various ways. I found that I wasn't fully committed to doing that, and spending as much time in my unique ability as I could. And it became very clear to me that I wanted to go all in and give myself an opportunity to inspire confidence in others and give structure to do to others. And I became laser focused on finding the investment I was going to make to change my life. I came from a family that had never gone to college, and I was the first from my family to ever go to college. And so I was already kind of changing the course of my life and even of my lineage. But it felt like I was quite being kind of pulled in different opportunities, and I wanted to have more say in where I was going. And so for me, it was a very clear lens of, I need to find something that I feel has the positive abundance and the opposite of scarcity and challenge, and just the things I was doing in the past. I was doing lots of like e-commerce businesses or software businesses, and nothing against those, but they weren't a good platform for where I could have the biggest impact. So I reflected a lot on what my unique ability was. At the time, I didn't know what it was. And I took a great little called Unique Abilities 2.0. It's my strategic coach. And it kind of helps you basically define what is the one thing you can do better than anyone else in the world. And that I felt called to that also from this experience. And after doing that, I was like, okay, that's my lens for what I'm going to invest everything in. And I'm not going to invest a little bit anymore. I'm actually going to like sell my house. I'm going to cash in my retirement. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, because it's what feels right. It's what feels like the right use of energy I have and the resources I have around my energy in this entrepreneur. And I looked at a few different things and they weren't right. And then I landed on my best friend from second grade. We parted ways in high school. He became a drug dealer, and I became like an athlete, and he was not with me up until that point. Just to be clear, he was my quarterback, he was my starting pitcher, and he was my point guard for football, baseball, and basketball. And we went 2 separate ways. And then all of a sudden, cannabis became legal in the United States and in Washington State. And we're still best friends from second grade, even though we went 2 different paths in life. And all of a sudden, his old path, the path that he was on for like 15 years at the time, or 10, 12 years at the time, was now in the realm of like legal entrepreneurship, which is the world that I was operating in. Yeah. And And so I see opportunity. Now I also evaluated. I did two. I evaluated this opportunity strategically. I was like, okay, there's going to be a bunch of unsophisticated operators. Check. That's a great thing, right? If you can compete against people that aren't as sophisticated as other industries, that's always helpful. Okay, next thing. Do I have an operator that has a competitive advantage, right? Are they just learning all this, or have they been doing this for a long time, long before it was even legal? Okay, check. I have that as well. Two, is it a large enough? And are there any are there any incumbents that already have a space? And it's like, check. There's no bigs in the cannabis space, and it's going to be billions of dollars very quickly. So like, okay, I'm seeing a lot of check marks for like the entrepreneur mind as I'm working through it, but I needed to have interaction with the universe that helped me kind of check the spiritual box and helped me like go back to that hawk and be like, this is your path. And very interesting. I didn't get to choose it. It eventually came down to, as I'm learning more about this industry and what it's going to take to actually operate within it, I'm now finding out there's no loans, there's no banks. This is the opposite. Like, these are not check marks you want if you're like running a business, like properly being a legit entrepreneur. And I'm like, okay, wow. So now I'm seeing that there's some risk here. I'm going to have to take a big leap of faith. And at first, my entrepreneur mind was like, shoot, I'm seeing a lot of red flags. But then I did what I did at that wake and bake that morning, and I reflected, I journaled, I got all my thoughts out of my head onto a piece of paper. So I had the opportunity to reflect on them, see how they were maybe limiting beliefs, or maybe how they could be flipped on their heads and see them in different ways. And I did that. And what landed for me was, actually, Nater, this is that opportunity you asked for. It's no longer a exercise of is this good use of my resources, time, and money. Now it's an exercise of, are you willing to not just give a little bit, but in order to pull this off, you got to sell your house, you got to cash in your retirement account, you got to put chips on the table. And oh, by the way, you don't know shit about cannabis. I still to this day, I've never used cannabis in my life. And so I also have to have zero subject matter expertise. Again, lots of red flags to a typical entrepreneurship kind of evaluation, but it landed on, Nater, you have the opportunity to step into your power, to inspire confidence in your best friend from second grade. The world might literally give you another opportunity in which you have to risk it all. And the only way it will succeed is if you actually step fully into your power, and you don't get to touch the business. You don't get to run the business. You don't get to do anything. You just get to inspire confidence in your best friend from second grade. So I stepped into that and I said, yes. I said, okay, let's do it. Sold my house, cashed in my retirement, emptied all my savings account because there was no loans, no banks involved, bought everything cash. And now it was two best friends who went on very different paths. And one friend who knew specifics of the industry that we were getting ourselves into, and another who gave him everything and was ready to support him and find ways to guide him and give him structure and inspire confidence that could make the right decisions, so that our business, which at a certain point isn't spiritual, is just a P&L sheet, and is revenue against expenses, and how are we thinking about the future, and how do we deal with all the nuances within the industry. And yeah, so that was about 6 years ago now. The company's called Hits Cannabis. And it seems crazy. Well, I've sold and bought companies and even worked at companies like Amazon.com. I've never been more proud. I've never felt so much abundance and confidence and love in any project I've ever worked on than the one I'm building with Tom, my best friend from second grade.
That's incredible, man. Where can everyone find you?
You can find us on hitsproducts.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Eric.
This has been the Pulse Ox podcast. Please, if you found this episode valuable, give us a like on Spotify and share it with a friend.